Karen screamed at my tactical gear, so I hosted a military drill on my front lawn. Have you ever wondered what happens when a suburban mom picks a fight with a combat veteran over a pair of boots? Let me tell you about the day Karen stormed into my life, armed with entitlement and a vendetta against my tactical gear, and how I turned her tantrum into a neighborhood spectacle she'd never forget. It was a crisp Saturday morning in our quiet cul-de-sac, the kind where kids ride bikes and neighbors wave over picket fences. I just returned from a weekend training with my National Guard unit, still in my camouflage fatigues, unloading my gear from the truck. My tactical boots, caked with mud from a field exercise, sat by the garage door. I was wiping them down when I heard the unmistakable screech of Karen's voice from across the street. Those boots are an eyesore. This is a respectable neighborhood, not a war zone, she bellowed, marching toward me with her designer sunglasses perched on her head and her yoga mat tucked under her arm. Her face was red, her hands flailing like she was directing traffic in a hurricane. I raised an eyebrow, confused. My boots? An eyesore? They'd survived deployments, mud runs, and worse, Karen's opinion wasn't even a blip on my radar. But Karen wasn't done. She planted herself in my driveway, hands on hips, and launched into a tirade about how my military nonsense was lowering property values. You can't just parade around in that gear. It's intimidating. My kids shouldn't have to see this. I glanced over at her minivan, where her two boys were glued to their tablets, oblivious to the world. I tried to stay calm, explaining I was just cleaning my equipment after a drill, but Karen wasn't having it. Take it inside, or better yet, get rid of it. We don't need your kind here. That last line hit like a stray bullet. My kind? I'd served 2 tours overseas, and now my own neighbor was treating me like a trespasser. I clenched my jaw, forcing a smile. Ma'am, I'll handle my gear. You have a nice day. She huffed, spun on her heels, and stormed back to her McMansion, muttering about calling the HOA. The truth? Karen's outburst wasn't about the boots. I'd seen her type before, entitled, thriving on control, always looking for a fight to prove she was the queen of the cul-de-sac. A quick chat with my neighbor, Tom, a retired cop who'd lived here for decades, revealed Karen's history. She'd once demanded the community pool be drained because someone's kid wore tacky flip-flops. Another time, she'd called the city on a family for their unapproved mailbox color. Tom chuckled, sipping his coffee. She's got a PhD in making enemies, Jake. Watch your back. That's when I learned about her husband, Greg, a quiet accountant who avoided her wrath by staying in his home office. Apparently, Greg had been spotted at the local bar, venting about Karen's episodes to anyone who'd listen. The twist? Greg was former Army, discharged after a desk job in logistics, never seen combat. I wondered if he'd ever stood up to her or if he'd just learned to duck and cover. Karen's attack lit a fire in me, but not the kind she expected. I wasn't going to hide my service or my gear to appease her. Instead, I decided to lean in hard. If she thought my boots were intimidating, I'd give her something to really talk about. I called up a few buddies from my unit, guys who'd humped through deserts and mountains with me. Bring your gear, I said. We're hosting a drill. They didn't need convincing. By Sunday morning, my front lawn was transformed into a mock training ground. We set up a small obstacle course. Tires, ropes, and a makeshift wall from plywood I had in the garage. We wore full tactical gear, helmets, vests, the works, and ran through drills like we were back at Fort Bragg. There was no live ammo, of course, just dummy rounds and a lot of shouting. Move, move, move. I barked as my buddy Mike low-crawled under a net. The neighborhood kids, including Karen's boys, abandoned their screens and gathered on the sidewalk, eyes wide with awe. Karen's reaction was immediate. She burst out of her house like a missile, phone in hand, already recording. "This is outrageous," she screamed, her voice cracking. "You're scaring my children. I'm calling the police." I kept my cool, directing my squad to continue the drill. "Ma'am, this is my property. We're just exercising." Her kids, meanwhile, were begging to join in, tugging at her yoga pants. "Mom, can we try the ropes?" one whined. Karen swatted them away, her face a mix of fury and embarrassment. Then, the unexpected happened. Greg emerged from their house. I braced for him to back her up, but instead, he looked exhausted, like a man who'd been dodging grenades his whole marriage. "Karen, let it go," he said quietly. Her head snapped toward him, eyes blazing. "Excuse me? You're taking his side." Greg didn't flinch. "You're making a fool of yourself. Again." The neighborhood went silent, like the air before a storm. Karen's meltdown was epic. She turned her wrath on Greg, screeching about his useless military past and how he never stood up for her. Greg, to his credit, didn't engage. He just walked back inside, leaving her alone on my lawn, still yelling. That's when the cops arrived, 2 officers, one of whom was a veteran I'd met at a VFW event. They listened to Karen's complaints, then turned to me. "This your property, Jake?" I nodded. "Any laws being broken?" I shook my head. The vet cop smirked. "Looks like a solid training session to me." He turned to Karen. "Ma'am, you need to leave his property. Now." Karen's jaw dropped, her phone still raised like a shield. She stammered, tried to argue, but the officers weren't having it. They escorted her back across the street as her kids trailed behind, still sneaking glances at our obstacle course. The fallout was swift. By Monday, the neighborhood group chat was buzzing. Karen's tantrum had been recorded by a teenager down the street and posted online, racking up views on social media. Comments roasted her. "Karen versus the National Guard, guess who lost?" And, "She picked the wrong lawn to mess with." The HOA, which she'd threatened to sick on me, sent her a letter about disrupting community harmony. Greg, I heard, started spending more time at the bar, and rumors swirled he was looking at apartments downtown. My drill team, we made it a monthly event, inviting the neighborhood kids to try the course, with parental permission, of course. Karen's boys became regulars, sneaking over when she wasn't looking. One even told me, "Mom says you're trouble, but I think you're cool." Looking back, I could have ignored Karen or filed a complaint with the HOA myself, but that's not how I'm wired. Service taught me to face challenges head-on, to turn adversity into opportunity. Karen thought she could bully me into hiding who I am: a veteran, a soldier, a guy who's proud of his muddy boots. Instead, I showed her, and the whole neighborhood, that strength isn't about screaming loudest. It's about standing your ground and building something better. My lawn's now a place where kids learn teamwork and resilience, not fear. And Karen? She's quieter these days, her sunglasses hiding the defeat in her eyes. What do you think? Did I go too far? Or was this the wake-up call Karen needed? Share your thoughts below. I'm all ears.